Hey guys, it's Miss Clark. I will be presenting to you the reading lesson for Rough Face Girl, which is for May 1st, 2020. So let's get started. Okay, so what we're going to do today is we're going to compare and contrast Soot Face and Rough Face Girl. Okay, so we've already read Soot Face and you've taken your quiz. So now you're going to do Rough Face Girl. So I can compare and contrast the characters, settings, and the main idea of Soot Face and the Rough Face Girl. I can determine the main idea of the story, The Rough Face Girl. So our vocabulary. So a wigwam is a round building with a round top. They are made from tree logs and covered again with bark. So there's a picture of a wigwam underneath. That's pretty cool. And then buckskin is skin of a buck or deer, a strong yellowish or grayish leather. So as you can see, there's an example of a shirt at the bottom. So let's activate some prior knowledge. We will look at the following website to gain background knowledge about the Algonquin tribe. Okay, so let's see if it'll respond. Okay, so Algonquin Indian Fact Sheet, Native American Facts for Kids, let's see, was written for young people learning about the Algonquins for school or homeschooling reports. All right, so let's keep going. So it says, how do you pronounce Algonquin? How do you spell it? So Algonquin is pronounced Algonquin. Oh, okay. Taught me something. Algonquin is the most common spelling, but you'll often see Algonquin too. Either way is fine, but avoid spelling the word Algonquian or Algonquian because that refers to a whole group of Native American languages, including Cree, Blackfoot, and Delaware. The Algonquins are only one of the many Algonquian-speaking tribes, and they have a unique identity and independent political status from the others. Okay, so what does the word Algonquin mean? Algonquin was the French name for the tribe. So the French were probably trying to pronounce Elegumokik, the Maliseet word for our allies, or Algumaking, a Micmac place name. All right, and then it says, where do the Algonquins live? The Algonquins are original natives of southern Quebec and eastern Ontario in Canada. So they're not in North America, they're not in our country, they were up above us in Canada. Today they live in 9 communities in Quebec and 1 in Ontario. Here's a map showing the location of the Algonquin and their relatives. That would be fun. Oh, look. We see that there's the Ojibwa. They were in the other story. Y'all remember that? Okay, Algonquin is over here. So remember, this is a map of Canada, not of North America. United States. So anyway, this is another country. This is Canada. So we have Potawatomi, Mississaugas. Wow, these are cool words. Nipissing, Odawa, Chippewa or Ojibwa, Ojibwe, and Chippewa Salto. Salto, I guess is how you say it. All right, so anyway, this is where the Algonquin lived, and the Ojibwa from the other story lived in this area. So they were closer to water. Cool, I like that. All right, let's go back. Okay. Let's see. And it says, but weren't there Algonquin Indians in New York State? No. Other Algonquin tribes lived in New York, but never the Algonquin tribe. Okay, so let's keep going. How's the Algonquin Indian Nation organized? Do they live on reservations? Each Algonquin community lives on its own reserve, also known as a reservation. So yes, it's kind of like a camp, I guess. What language do the Algonquin people speak? Some bands are English speaking and others are French speaking. All right, so some of them speak their native Algonquin language. What was Algonquin culture like in ancient times? What is it like now? How do Algonquin children live and what did they do in the past? They do the same things all children do, play with each other, go to school, and help around the house. What were Algonquin men and women's roles? Algonquin women gathered plants to eat and did most of the child care. Men were hunters and sometimes went to war. What were Algonquin homes like? There's the wigwam that we just looked at. What was Algonquin clothing like? So here is I wonder if it'll let me zoom in. Nope, it says page not found. Let's go back. But anyway, you can see his clothes. Looks like the typical Indian that they portray. What was Algonquin transportation like? They used canoes. What was Algonquin food like? They hunted a lot, had deer, moose, and small game. Algonquin weapons. We could keep going on and on. This is a great amount of information. All right, so we'll come back to our lesson. All right, now let's keep going. Okay, so Soot Face. I want you to think about the story Soot Face that we read. What was the gist or main idea? What was the story about? What happened in the story and why did that happen? Okay, oops. So that was from Soot Face. That was the one from yesterday. The one that you took the quiz about yesterday. Whew, I'm making all kinds of bloopers. All right. Anyway, comparing and contrasting. Today, we will be doing a close reading of the story, The Rough-Faced Girl. The first time that we read the story, we're going to read without stopping. So when we're done reading, we're going to compare and contrast the story, Soot Face and The Rough-Faced Girl. So now, we're going to read without stopping. Rough-Faced Girl by Rafe Martin. By the way, you should have this copy in your packet, just FYI. All right. Okay. Once long ago, there was a village by the shores of Lake Ontario. Off from the other wigwams of this village stood one great, huge wigwam. Painted on its sides were pictures of the sun, moon, stars, plants, trees, and animals. And inside this wigwam, there was said to live a very great, rich, powerful, and supposedly handsome, invisible being. However, no one could see him, except his sister, who lived there also. Many women wanted to marry this invisible being, but his sister said only the one who can see him can marry him. Now, in this village, there lived a poor man who had 3 daughters. The 2 older daughters were cruel and hard-hearted, and they made their youngest sister sit by the fire and feed the flames. When the burning branches popped, the sparks fell on her. In time, her hands became burnt and scarred. Her arms, too, became rough and scarred. Even her face was marked by the fire, and her beautiful long black hair hung ragged and charred. Charred means burned. And those 2 older sisters laughed at her, saying, "Ha! You're ugly, you rough-faced girl." And they made her life very lonely and miserable indeed. The rough-faced girl went to her father and said, "Father, may I please have some beads? May I please have a new buckskin dress and some pretty moccasins? I'm going to marry the invisible being, for wherever I look, I see his face." But her father sighed. "Daughter," he said, "I'm sorry. I have no beads left for you, only some little broken shells. I have no buckskin dress." But she said, "Whatever you can spare, I can use." So he gave her these things. Then she found dried reeds, and taking the little broken shells, she strung a necklace. She stripped birch bark from the dead trees and made a cap, a dress, and leggings. Then, with a sharp piece of bone, she carved in the bark pictures of the sun, moon, stars, plants, trees, and animals. Then all the people came out of their wigwams. They pointed and stared, but the rough-faced girl had faith in herself, and she had courage. She just kept walking right through the village. As she walked on, she saw the great beauty of the earth and sky spreading before her, and truly she alone, of all in that village, saw in these things the sweet yet awesome face of the invisible being. At last, she came to the lake shore just as the sun was sinking behind the hills, and the many stars came glittering out like a fiery veil in the darkening sky overhead. And there, standing by the water's edge, was the sister of the invisible being, waiting. When she looked at the rough-faced girl, she saw at once that though her skin was scarred, her hair burnt, her clothes strange, she had a beautiful, kind heart. And so she welcomed her dearly, saying, "Ah, my sister, why have you come?" And the rough-faced girl replied, "I have come to marry the invisible being." "Tell me, have you seen my brother, the invisible being?" And the rough-faced girl said, "Yes. If you have seen him, tell me, what's his bow made of?" And the rough-faced girl said, "His bow? Why, it is the great curve of the rainbow." "Ah!" cried the sister in wonder and delight. "You have seen him. Come with me." And, taking the rough-faced girl by the hand, she led her back to the great wigwam. Then they heard footsteps coming along the path. The entrance flap of the wigwam lifted up, and in stepped the invisible being. And when he saw her sitting there, he said, "At last, we have been found out." Then, smiling kindly, he added, "And oh, my sister, but she is beautiful." The sister of the invisible being then gave the rough-faced girl the finest of buckskin robes and a necklace of perfect shells. "Now bathe in the lake," she said, "and dress in these." So the rough-faced girl bathed in the waters of the lake. Suddenly, all the scars vanished from her body. Her skin grew smooth again, and her beautiful black hair grew in long and glossy as a raven's wing. Now anyone could see that she was, indeed, beautiful, but the invisible being and his sister had seen that from the start. Okay, so, oh, now you're going to write down the gist of who was the main character, what did they do, and why did they do it. So I want you to write it somewhere on your passage or on a piece of paper. So, what is the gist of the story, The Rough-Faced Girl? As we are answering the question, let's keep in mind these three questions that we use to help us determine the gist: who, what, why. Remember, it's supposed to be 10 words or less, very short. Okay? So, how are the stories alike? Characters, setting, main idea. And then, how are the stories different? Character, setting, main idea. So, what I would do is I'd go ahead and write down some stuff on your passage and hold on to that. And then during our Google Meet, we can go over the answers and see what you guys got. Okay, so I hope you guys have a great day, and I will see you at our Google meeting.